I love when coaches, consultants, and professional service providers want to do big things in their business. They want to rise to the top and influence their market and the world around them. They want to have a greater impact and make a more lucrative income. Well, if this is you, welcome to Expert in You Podcast, the show where I interview other experts and coaches, consultants, so that they can share their success strategies with you. We're going to talk about marketing and how to close more sales, how to get more premium clients, and how to really build your visibility in the market and scale your business like a boss. If this is you, welcome to the show. I want to ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell right now so you don't miss one episode. Grab your coffee and buckle up because we are ready to give it all to you to help you become the expert and get paid as the expert that you are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Expert in You Podcast. I'm your host, Carden, and I'm going live this week for my podcast because I have this amazing guest, Cheryl Tan, and I knew Cheryl was going to be someone that we had to go live with because we're going to talk about video, how to show up like a pro on video to build your brand, build your visibility. And just very quickly to tell you first of all, Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Hello.
So excited to have you here. And I want to really talk about your experience because Cheryl was actually a former news media anchor. So that should tell you something. She has just a little bit of experience about being on camera, being live, all of these things. And so we're going to dive into how she's really taken all of that expertise and experience and turn that into really a coaching business and helping people be able to just show up with authority and really to be able to build their brand and show up so great. So I'm so excited to have you here, Cheryl. We're going to have a blast.
I'm so excited to be on your show. And we had the opportunity to meet when I interviewed you for my podcast. And we hit it off. We had such a great conversation. And I'm really looking forward to what we talk about here today.
Absolutely. And it was so much fun being on your show. And also, I am going to probably repurpose this to my clients because I know you're going to give some great takeaways today. And I'm always trying to help my clients be better on camera and do things differently. So that was another reason I really wanted you on here. And I see one of my clients is actually on here with us. So hi, Shanna. Okay, so let's jump into it. First of all, give us just a little bit of your backstory. And I did share your experience, but why don't you say why you went this direction instead of still being a news anchor?
Whew. Gosh, where do I begin, Anne? My first real job after college was as a TV news reporter. And I thought I would do that for many, 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 many years. And I did. I did that for about 20 years. I've worked in 7 or so different newsrooms, TV, radio, newspaper, all of the places. And I had an incredible career. I had just had the opportunity to meet some wonderful, wonderful people. But in 2014, I just decided that I wanted to create my own path. And I know you work with so many people who are doing the same thing. They want to create something for themselves.
Yes.
Which is what I did way back then. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. The absolute scariest, because when you think
employee to entrepreneurship, I know, the big leap.
so scary. And I'm really thankful I made that move. And what I realized just when I started, I got some good advice from people who said, teach what you know. And I lost my way a little bit in the very beginning. I taught a little bit of what I thought I knew. And then I realized over time that the part that I loved doing on the job, one of my most favorite things that I love doing on the job was working with people to help them tell their stories better on camera. Mm-hmm. That was it. And I couldn't always do that. Sometimes we were in breaking news situations. We were in situations where I needed a different type of story. But by and large, I was able to help the people I interviewed bring the best of themselves on camera. And that's what I'm doing now in the business. And it has been, once I figured that out, it became so much easier.
Oh, and do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Exactly. And having conversations like these
Mhm.
to help people understand that we all get nervous, we all get tongue-tied, we all have times when we really shouldn't be speaking in public, but we still have to, and help them realize that it will all be okay.
Yes.
And video is the way.
I love this because it's so important for people to know too that, and it isn't about perfect. And our title is, show up like a pro on camera, but it truly is not about being perfect as much as it is showing up, being yourself, telling your story, all the things we're going to talk about today. So first of all, I'm so excited that you made the leap because I think there's nothing like entrepreneurship. I've been an employee. I was in corporate for many, many years. And I can't imagine, I say now I'm completely unemployable, like nobody would hire me, right? Because I've been an entrepreneur for so many years. But let's just talk for just a minute, though. Tell me about that transition. Do you love it?
I love it. Now, I think you will agree with me, Anna, I think you will, where there are days when I'm just like, I wonder if a job makes sense today.
No.
There are days. There are days, but I haven't done it yet, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Really wouldn't
To get
trade
to forge your own path is so great. So, Cheryl, let's jump into how do you show up on camera like a pro? And then let's talk about even the purpose, why this is so important and what people really need to know about what you're helping them do and why should they care? Let's talk about that.
I'm going to start with that part first, right? Why being on video, why being comfortable on camera, why when you are on Zoom, you want to feel confident, why any of that matters. And I liken it to being a mother of 3 boys, which is what I am. I've got 3 teenagers. My youngest is 14. My oldest is 20. And on any given day, I'm pretty much ignored. It's just, I'm just pretty much like, who are you? Where's my dinner? Is my laundry done? That kind of thing. It's one of those things. But I think of it like grabbing attention. And you don't have to be anybody but you. But if you are you, if you have the laundry, if you have a good meal on the table, if the house is the way it should be, then the person who is on the other side and is interested in clean clothing and a good meal will focus and stand up and listen. So I kind of think of video in that way, but it is all about connection. It's all about creating that perfect connection, but it doesn't mean you have to be perfect.
Right.
It doesn't mean the words have to be exactly the way you think in your head they should be, but they don't come out the same way. But it's about being who you are on camera and creating that connection with that perfect person.
So true.
That's why I think
I love what you're saying too. So many people hold themselves back because they're so afraid that they're going to say something wrong. And here's what I will tell you. It's kind of like a muscle that you build. The more you do it, the less you care. When you first start, it's like, I remember, and I think Cheryl, we talked about this. I remember my first Facebook Live. And I was mortified. First of all, I was shaking the whole time, but even after watching it back, I was just mortified at how nervous I was. And I had been speaking on stages for years, but being virtual was a totally different animal. Plus I was trying to manage all the controls and all of that. And so that's a very real piece of this as well, is trying to kind of manage that. But I love that you're talking about this because if I mess up or I say something wrong, I'm like, oh, well, that's just the way it was, right?
That's how I feel about it. And I think too, it's about awareness. When you realize, as you do, Anne, you're going to do another live next week. You're going to do another podcast next week. And at some point, there's going to be so many, you're not going to remember when maybe there was a flub or there was something that you misspoke about. Maybe there was an issue technically. I can't remember I can't remember all of the times when this has happened because it's happened so often that I just can't keep it in my brain. So that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing that you have so many to think back on that you just can't remember all of the issues that had come up at the moment.
Oh, that's
so that's
true.
kind of the way
That is so true. I don't even know. I've never counted, and I don't even think I could, between my YouTube channel, all the live streams I've done over the last, I don't know, 10 years. I literally probably have thousands of videos out there, good or bad. They're out there, right? But yeah, I think it goes back to the main thing is you've got something to say, you've got impact to make, you have a message to share. And if you don't show up powerfully on video, you're missing so much opportunity to not just, as I help people grow their businesses, to not just grow your business, but also to make that great impact and even a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the stuff will be around for a long time.
Yep. The videos will last. That's for sure. And I know that's what freaks people out sometimes. They think that the video will be around forever and will be that thing that people only remember if there was a mess up or if there was a mishap that happened. But what I was kind of thinking as you were talking, Anne, is just about the passion. Like clearly you love what you do, and people are going to remember that more than they remember the actual words or the technical aspect or the lighting or any of that.
True.
And it's the passion that we can't do for you. Like we can't make that for anybody. We've got to make sure that people understand it comes from within.
Yeah, I love this. So I would love to dive into just some tactical things about showing up like a pro or looking like a pro when you're on camera. I notice like my lighting. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, the audio, you won't see this, but I notice my lighting isn't the best today, and I'm not sure what happened there. But I'm looking at Cheryl's lighting, and it's beautiful and it's perfect, and mine is not. So there's a good example. But I really want to dive into the tactical things, but I also want to talk about once you put something out there and it isn't perfect or it's not the way you want it, what do you recommend? We know it's going to be out there for a long time, but what do you recommend that you do with that if you did have some real bloopers or some real mess ups or whatever? I would love to talk about. So do's and don'ts first, some tactical things.
Do you want to start with the do's or the don'ts?
Either one. You just take it away, Cheryl.
Let me start with the do's, and then I'll come and circle back to what you had mentioned regarding mess ups or things that maybe you don't want living out in the world, because that is going to happen. Sure. But as far as do's, I really want you to think of it in three ways. It's like a three-step process, if you will. We're going to first talk about the foundation, because the foundation is really, really, really important. And that is one thing that when I work with my students and the one-on-one clients that I have is really the foundation. Okay, so foundation, mindset, and strategy. Okay, so let's start with the foundation, where as I'm looking at your shot, Anne, it's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. And mine can be definitely better. We can always do better. But what I really want people to think about when they are setting up their shots, whether they're sitting on a Zoom or they're going to be interviewed by a TV crew on Zoom, or they're shooting a video for themselves, I really want them to think about lights, camera, and energy. In that order. So when I'm thinking about lights, I want the light to always be in front of me. And when light is behind you, it can't, like if you're really good with lights, you can have lights behind you and you can create a nice backlit effect. But I'm not that good with lighting. So I always want the light in front of me. If I need to turn around, then I need to turn around, but I always want to be facing the window. So I've got a huge window in front of me. I've also got an external light, but I don't really use it, especially when I'm doing videos during the day. So lights in front of us.
Okay.
I need a camera, right? And so we have a camera that is right in front of us, right? A laptop or a phone or something like that. And just make sure you understand that you have, whether you have vertical or horizontal video, depending on where you're streaming. your content too. You want to make sure that it's correct, but you want to make sure that you're looking in the right place, right? You're looking into the camera. And so just a minute ago, I was looking at you, Anne, like I was like trained right there on you. But if I was presenting to a room, I'd look into the camera, which is right there at the top of my screen. And so before you go live, make sure where that is. Make sure you understand where the camera is so we know where your viewer is looking at you from. So lights ahead of you, camera, kind of make sure where you are, make sure you're framed properly in your screen. So if you're listening at home, make sure, I always say this, like you're the anchor of your shot. So
I love that.
Middle of your screen with about an inch of space between the top of your head and the top of the screen. And just be in the middle. I know some people, when they are on camera, they like to sort of shrink. And so I'm shrinking down in my screen. I like to be in the corner. And no. If you're gonna be on video,
that does not speak authority, does it?
Well, we want you to be on video, right? We want you to be seen. So lights, camera, and then energy. And energy is one of those things that is something that you build up to, but it is so important. If people see that you are passionate about your topic, they'll forgive a lot of the small things. They'll forgive bad lighting. They won't actually forgive bad audio, but we're going to always be in a quiet place. So I didn't mention that. We're always going to be in a quiet place when we're shooting our videos. But they'll forgive a lot of things if you are obviously into what it is you're talking about.
Right. So and if you're really showing up for them, they're going to feel that too. Like we don't just do this for our health, right?
They will absolutely. They'll feel it, and they'll also connect with it. And so again, that's why when people say, I need to buy new cameras, I need to buy a new microphone, I need to buy a new outfit, whatever, I need to buy things before I can start video. That's why it's not necessary, because it's still you at the end of the day. And that's what we want to focus on.
Great tips. Okay, keep going.
So now that we have the foundation, and so that's what I drill into my students. And I'm like, okay, lights, camera, energy. So you need those three things every time you're sitting in front of the camera, right? First, those things. But once you have those things, then the mindset game will take over. Because if you think about, and Anna, I'd love to hear your ideas on this. When your students say to you, I can't do video, it's because I don't have the right cameras or I don't have the right lighting. I know you hear that because I hear that as well.
I do.
Then it goes to, so then you're going to say lights, camera, energy. Then because most those things are free. Like you don't need you have a window, you probably have a laptop, and then the energy is all your own. So then the next part of that is the mental game we all play and that we all kind of fall victim to, is we think that we don't know our stuff. We don't know our stuff well enough, that we are umming and awing all over the place, that our filler words are making it difficult for other people to understand us, that we can't put a thought together. Stop. And I say it to myself as well. Because I feel it as well. I feel sometimes that the ideas aren't coming out as clear as they should. But the mental game happens to all of us.
Sure.
So what I'm interested in making sure that people know is we all feel the same way. The people who've been doing video for a very long time are feeling the same sort of insecurity as those who maybe haven't created as many videos out there.
Right.
And it's just important to get started so that you have, as we talked about earlier, so that you have more reps, if you will.
Right.
You have more reps, like, because my son plays football, so they want to keep doing it.
Yes.
Time in.
That's what I said. After you do thousands, you care less, right? You just show up and you're you. And funny story. So when I was first doing video online and starting to build my brand, I remember sending one of my videos to an editor on Fiverr, and I said, "Can you edit out all the ums?" And because I, was thinking it had to be perfect. And he sent it back and said, "I cannot." There were so many. He said, "I cannot edit. I can't edit them." So I'm putting that out there because look, we all start there. And even now I will watch videos back or a podcast back, and I'll think, I said, so many times. They probably don't know. That's why they're watching. But yet I said, So we all pick up on things that we do. But at the end of the day, it goes back to you have impact and you have things to share. And the people that will resonate and will care will listen. And the people that want to get hung up on the other stuff, they're not your people anyway, right? That's what I always say. They're not your people.
Exactly. And, let's say you do a video on January 1st. Maybe it is not the best video you've ever put together. Maybe it's the first video you've ever sat in front of and hit record and kept. But if you keep creating that content, if you keep sitting in front of that camera and talking and trying to get your ideas out there, and you do that for 30 days, you do that for at least a consistent amount of time, 6 months later, you will definitely see a difference. And so that's part of that mindset thing too, is people want to be really good at this on day one. And the reality is it takes time. Like, it really does take time. And in so many things happen quickly, right? Things can happen quickly if it's bad, right? Bad things sometimes happen very quickly.
What you're talking about is a skill set, right? You're learning a new skill, and most new skills do not happen overnight. You don't get good at them overnight.
No. But over time, if you do start paying attention and sort of marking the time that passes by watching some videos over that length of time, you will see some marked improvement.
Yes.
Of that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure about that. So that mindset piece is important, knowing that you're not alone in this, in feeling those heart palpitations or that feeling of being short of breath or wondering, why am I doing this? It's not worth it. We all feel that, but we push through. And once you get past that mindset piece and you have the foundation, you're 2/3 of the way there. You were really 2/3 of the way there.
I love it. All right. So let's talk about the third piece.
Okay. It's about having a bit of a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about this sometimes. It's called a random active video. Have you heard of it, Anne? Have you maybe met someone who's done this, where you're, maybe one of your clients, or I know I've got clients who've done this as well. They have this excitement. I've talked to them. We've given them ideas. They understand lights, camera, energy. They've got the mindset thing going. They create a video on January 15th. It's fabulous. And then they stop. They are a random act of video, which, a video is a video, and there's nothing wrong with it. And if you want to stop, that's fine. But you'll get the results that you want regarding getting better on video. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want a better job, you want a promotion, maybe you want people to see you in a different way. Maybe you want to attract new clients. Mm-hmm. That will require a little bit more forethought and strategy to create that plan, and a little more consistency.
Yes. Well, a lot more consistency, but yes. And I think you really hit on a great point there. Consistency is everything, especially if you are trying to really grow your business or make something happen. If you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, and I know you do a lot in the corporate sector with executives and where they're looking for different things, but consistency is still a really huge piece. I think for even if you want to leave a legacy, you have to still have enough out there or enough that you've done to be able to accomplish that. So I think a lot of people fall short in that category.
Well, You and I were talking when we were recording the podcast just about the effort it takes to be consistent.
Mhm.
And I think some people might think that we wake up and go, okay, I'm going to shoot a video and it's no problem. But I don't know about you, Anne, but me, sometimes it takes me a while. I need to work up to it sometimes. And I have to give myself pillars, things that I like, goals I have to hit before I actually sit in front of the camera as well. But I do focus on this, and I make sure that it is part of my at least weekly routine to create some sort of video content. And I know you do as well.
Yes.
I mean, you've got a system. It's good too.
Well, thank you. Yes, I mean that's so true. And there are a lot of days I think, oh, I don't want to do another YouTube video, like really. And you also feel like, I've said this 100 times before, how can I put a new spin on this? So all of those things are real things that we all deal with. And I even with my clients, I had one of my clients say, Ann, you say the same things all the time. I listen to everything. And I said, yes. And that's what I'm teaching you to do. So people know what your brand is. So they know what you're all about. So they know what it is you do. So you have to be consistent. But yeah, you do want to make it interesting. So it always sounds like it's got a bit of a different spin on it. But no, there are a lot of days I think, oh, I don't want to record this video, or I don't want to do the podcast. That's with all of us. Although I have to say, once I start, I'm great. I love it. This is one of my favorite things to do in my business, but we all go through that.
But I think that's exactly the point. As you practice what you preach, it isn't easy to sit down in front of the camera, at least before you do it, because it requires forethought.
Right.
It requires a little bit of thinking ahead. In some cases, it requires some makeup and putting together an outfit. And those are things that must happen before the result happens.
Exactly.
And I'd rather sometimes sit and watch Netflix. So that's where that happens.
So let's talk about some don'ts. We talked about do's and what you need to do, but let's talk about some don'ts. What are some, like, do not do this no matter what?
I would say the first thing is don't give up before you've started. I think maybe you see a lot of people who maybe fall into that, where they're sabotaging themselves before even getting to that next level, right? They've said, I don't have anything to say. I am, unclear about my message. I am not sure exactly how I want to show up. And so they don't do anything. And so that I would definitely say that that's one of the first things. And one of the fixes I have for this part of that, if you feel like giving up before you even started, is to start where no one is watching. Like, I think that starting when nobody is watching is a really good one, actually. And, with Facebook groups that you can create that are like private Facebook groups, everybody's got a phone and they can create videos on their phone that they are the only person watching.
Right.
You can create private channels on LinkedIn. You can have your own private YouTube channel where nobody else has the link, or you leave it unlisted. But creating video content where you are the only audience member, I think is very freeing, because it allows you to create video content or content that is just for you. But what if it's great?
Right.
What if it is amazing? And then you can send it out to the world.
Yes.
So I think number one is don't quit. Don't stop before you've started.
Great advice. Great advice. What are some other don'ts? Let's talk about even some tactical things. You talked about lighting. You talked about an inch right above and being sort of the center. Anything else that you want to talk about?
Did you notice I sat up? Like I sat
Here, let me move close.
Okay, so hang on. Let me get everything ready. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, and it is related to the lights, camera, energy, is there, and I'm trying to make this, I'm trying to phrase this a little bit better. It's almost like they're a little surprised. And so I don't want there to be any surprise. Like, I don't want there to be any surprise that there is a light. So for example, on my laptop, there's a green light. Sometimes if you're in a TV studio, there is actually a red light that will signify that you were speaking into that particular camera. But I don't want there to be any surprise. So if that's the case, I want to make sure that before the camera turns on, before the red light or the green light or the recording happens, that you know exactly what is there. And so the mistake I see is the camera will turn on and you're not ready. So like, you're messing with your hair, your hair is not locked. I'm doing it right now. You're fiddling.
You're
with
eating under your desk.
Eating, right. And all of the things. Your lighting is not acceptable. And when I mean not acceptable is the light is like shining on you, behind you, so that your face is actually not seen. So these are things that you can test before actually going live or recording or on Zoom. You can do all of this because there's a preview button when you're on Zoom, but there are opportunities to see yourself before you're actually visible to other people.
Right.
And I would encourage you to take advantage of that time so you can kind of set the scene, you can set the foundation before the recording happens or before other people see what's happening on your screen.
Right.
So that would be my number 2 mistake, is not really focusing enough on preparing for that on-camera experience before the on-camera stuff actually happens.
Great tip. Okay, perfect. Anything else?
The third one, and as I was talking about that last tip, it came to mind, and I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. I actually just forgot what that was. Is to always know what you're talking about.
And let's just bring that up. When you have a thought and then it just leaves you, which happens to all of us. That just happened. I was on a podcast yesterday, and she said, I had a question for you, and it just literally left my brain. And I've had that happen. What do you do in that situation?
So we're human, right? We're always going to have this sort of happen. But one of the things that I know is important is to have a pen nearby. If I was smart, I would have written down what was on my mind while I was talking about it. But in any case, before our segment today, I wrote down some bullet points. I wrote them down to make sure that when you were asking me a question, I would have at least bullet points to go to. So I don't have a script written out, although a script is fine if that is how you work. And until you get comfortable being on camera, then definitely go with something completely written out. Right. And you can dial back as you get more comfortable and more familiar with how you are on camera. But certainly writing down, like taking a minute and stealthily writing down the bullet points is something I would definitely do. So I didn't do it just now because it came into my mind while I was talking. But one of the things that is really, really, really important is to be clear on your thoughts before you actually go on camera.
Yes, that's so important. And I would love to know what you think about teleprompters. So there's someone that I watch on video frequently, and I could always tell that they were using a teleprompter. But now I've seen their videos where they've put the camera up higher so that you can't really see that they're reading. But I know that they're still using a teleprompter, but the video, the angle of it, you can't necessarily see that they're, even though they tried to make it sound like they weren't reading, you could see that they were reading by the way their eyes were moving. So I'm curious what you think about some of those things.
Okay, so I think if you can get away with using a teleprompter and you need it, like if you need a teleprompter and you can get away with it, go for it. I mean, the news anchors do it. I've done it for years and years and years.
Our president does it. Yes.
If you can get away with it and you need it, go for it. If you're able to present ideas thoughtfully, succinctly, impactfully without it, then actually you can create more energy if you do it without it, if that makes sense. Because the teleprompter is pretty limiting. Unless
Right.
you've written it down, you're not going to say it because you're not going to want to go faster than the words that are flying in front of your face.
Right.
So if you are able to share the ideas that you want to share in bullet point fashion, that could be written down. It could be written down on a piece of paper. So, maybe I've written down, don't do this, don't do that, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to look down. It looks a lot more natural.
I was going to say, I would rather have someone that would look at a piece of paper and then talk versus reading, because then I'm like, do they really know what they're talking about here? Right. Do they really know their content well? Are
they connecting? Yeah. And it's all about the connection piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not using a teleprompter right now. I would tell you if I was. I'm not using a teleprompter. I think you can probably tell. But I'm looking at you, Anne, and we're having a conversation.
Right.
I think people can tell that. I can also say, if you are very good, though, if you've been using a teleprompter for a long period of time, you can also get that same effect. Mm-hmm. But without one, your conversation can go in different ways easier.
Right. Yeah, I think you're not so confined too. For example, one of the reasons I do not like to do podcasts with a script or with questions that have already been pre-established is because I love the direction that conversations take when I have real experts on here. And if I just gave them a series of questions and I fired off questions, there would be a lot of gold nuggets and a lot of value left out of that conversation. And it also, to me, really shines a light on their expertise when they can go with the conversation. I think when people can't naturally flow with the conversation, it says more about maybe they're not so, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't have real depth or knowledge about this topic or something that they're trying to talk about. So for me, it's an authority builder. It's a credibility builder when I can ask you a question, Cheryl, and you can fire off the answers. And then I can ask a question about what you just said and you can fire off the answers. I just think it makes for a much more impactful conversation than sticking to some sort of a script. That's just my personal feeling. I also enjoy watching shows more like that or listening to podcasts more like that as well.
Yeah, well, it's more free flowing.
Yes.
I thought of one more, Anne. I didn't write it down either. A mistake that I think people make, and it kind of ties into the number one, where they stop before they start, is they don't think that their expertise, which is great, because I know you work with people who are an expert in whatever industry that they're in, and I do as well. So they're seasoned, they know their stuff. They know their stuff 100%. So that's not the worry. But they fear that the lack of knowledge about the video world supersedes the actual knowledge they have in whatever industry they're in.
This is a great point. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
And you brought it up. You think of it because, somebody who's got deep-seated knowledge in construction or law or accounting or whatever the industry is that they're in, they might feel, I know my stuff. Like I absolutely know my stuff. And I'm happy to talk about this topic with a one-on-one type of conversation with anybody. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to do any video because I think that that's too high of a barrier for me to get over. And I would just say, please don't allow that to deter you, because having that deep-seated knowledge in whatever industry you have is way more valuable. The video stuff can be learned.
Right.
It really can be learned.
Right.
And it's really fun.
Yeah, I'm really glad you are bringing this up because people, again, you said it earlier, people are forgiving if you're authentic. People are more forgiving if you're putting out great value and they're grabbing on. And before long, they forget the background and they forget and they're focused on what you're saying and how impactful what you are saying is. And so I think you are so spot on. Don't ever let that hang you up from putting out there the value that you have. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. I have loved this. We have to wrap it up, but is there anything else, Cheryl, that we didn't talk about that you would just like to bring into wrapping all of this up?
I would like to actually just kind of to put a bow on it, I guess you might say, is going back to what we talked about, why this is important. I would say that the clients that I've worked with, so many of them are in the corporate arena. They're not what I would describe as people wanting to be video stars. They're not on video. They don't want to be YouTube stars necessarily. They just started creating video to create a bit of a platform for themselves. And in so many cases, these simple skills, the simple things we talked about here today, help them create opportunities for themselves. And so I think we in this group know how important it is to create opportunities, whether it's a new client, a new partnership, maybe a new job for my clients,
a new speaking engagement,
some incredible promotion.
Yes, being able to speak,
a new speaking engagement. And I feel like this world now there's so many different nuances. They're overlapping a lot actually, but opportunity is everywhere. And if you can articulate your thoughts and ideas, and you can do that on a Zoom call, which is video. If you can do that with your iPhone, which is video, if you can do that on a live stream like we're doing on video, then you have a greater opportunity of creating more opportunities for yourself.
And I want to add to, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but really it's about connection. When you're on video, you can write posts, you can put out great blogs, you can do everything that you want in print, right? And in the word, but there's nothing that is as powerful to me as being able to look into someone's eyes, see that they know their stuff, listen to them, and be able to really make that authentic connection with them. And video can do that. We've sort of built our own stage here, and we're able to just share and let people really see into who we are and what we do and what we know. And I just don't think there's a more powerful way in the online world, especially, to be able to do that unless you're just going to be live right in front of someone. Do you agree with that?
I agree. And thank you for the chance to speak with you, Anne, and talk to people in your audience.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. You're so wonderful at what you do, and I love everything you're doing. What type of program do you have, Cheryl? Let's talk about your program really quick, because this is one of the things you help people really get good at. So what is that?
So I have several programs, but one of them is called, very simply, a video boot camp. I like to be really clear. You probably can tell that. So this is what that is. If you are interested, just super clear, it's 4 weeks to video confidence. And what we do in the boot camp is you create videos. It's the only deliverable. And we do it in an online community, and our students are getting some really great results. It's been really fun to watch them. When they first come in, they're just like, I really don't know. I have a phone, but I don't know how to use it. But then a month later, we get a lot of videos out of them, and they start to feel a different way about themselves. So that's been really, really, really fun to watch. And that's probably the program that is the simplest to get people in with. And then after that, we can help anybody with messaging and getting in more places as far
That's
as
great.
visibility.
I actually love, we didn't talk about this, but even with my clients, when I first get them doing video and first get them, doing their thing online, it's so fun to watch the progression. And all of a sudden they literally start looking like a pro, like they're confident. And so one of the things we didn't really talk about was the confidence builder. And even when people are talking about their expertise, the more you talk about it, the better you are at it. And so it also builds that it builds, I think it builds your expertise as well, and gets you very clear and very dialed in on exactly, especially working with coaches and consultants and professionals, entrepreneurs, it gets you very clear on what you deliver and how you help people. And so it just solidifies it in my mind. I think it solidifies it, but I love to watch the progression, how they start out and they're good and they do a good job. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, look at this person. It's totally different. So much fun. You have a fun job, Cheryl.
I agree. I have a great one. And yes, I will agree with you 100%. It is so much fun to see. And the results for them, the clarity building is something that I didn't recognize in the very beginning. But when people are creating videos and they have to talk about themselves and talk about what they do and how they help clients or serve people in their business or network or whatever related to what they're doing, you have to be really clear. And if you don't have it in the beginning, by the end, you will.
So great. This has been a blast. So Cheryl, how can people get a hold of you? And we will put all of her links and everything in the show notes, and you can connect with her on, we're on LinkedIn and we're on some other social platforms right now, but you can connect with her on LinkedIn. That's, I think, how I may be connected with her. And Cheryl, how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn would be great. I'm on LinkedIn, Cheryl Tan. I have a YouTube channel. So if you're looking for content that can help you create more confidence just through some of the things that we've talked about here, I talk about all of the things that we talked about here on my YouTube channel. I have a podcast, Stand Out with Cheryl Tan, and you can listen to Anne and as one of the more recent episodes. And probably LinkedIn probably would be the best way. So if you have any questions, if I can help you, just reach out to me there. And
perfect. Well, thank you again so much for being here. It was such an honor and a pleasure to have you. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful week. Go rock your business. And thank you for being here. God bless you. Bye-bye. If you've enjoyed this episode, I want to invite you to go check out a free training that I have at expertinu.us. It is a training that I have on how you can get ultra premium dream clients, scale your business, get more freedom, and really simplify your business and multiply your money. So go check that out. And again, that is expertinu.us. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. I hope you found massive value. Please always leave a comment, feedback, or a question. We check them all. And I want you to go rock your business and make sure you join us again next week. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.